Dear Thay, dear friends, this morning in the reading we heard a teaching by Master Linji brought to us by Thay, and Linji says, wherever you are your true person. Wherever you are your true person. And Thay suggests this is so important for us to reflect on, to take on board, that we could make a little card and put these words on and carry them with us to take them out and remind ourselves. Wherever you are your true person. And perhaps in our modern language that speaks to authenticity, perhaps we could say wherever we are, we can be authentic, we can just be ourselves. And that's a teaching I've been grappling with for many years. Whenever I've been to Plum Village for a June retreat, they used to be 3 weeks long, so a good chunk of practice time in the sangha. A theme would emerge for me, maybe in form of a question. And there was more than one retreat for me in Plum Village where the question came, how can I be authentic in my practice? How can I be myself and at the same time practice? Thay spoke in one retreat in particular, I remember, it was actually a winter retreat, about making the practice our own. What does the practice look like embodied by each of us? And he said, if you're a beautiful tulip, why try and be a rose? Be a beautiful tulip. And that's a real koan to plant in our store consciousness. What is it like to be my beautiful tulip? Because of course there are also teachings of non-self, and they are equally important, and then we can easily get confused. So that's something to be with for a while, and perhaps indeed put that little card into our wallet. Wherever you are your true person. I think it's easy for us, certainly speaking for myself, who has a background of years of severely being bullied at primary school, which resulted in a strong habit of vigilance, of being cautious, of am I doing it right for everyone? And also this is very much our cultural conditioning, definitely for women, but I believe to a great degree also for men, to make it right for everyone. But of course we can't make it right for everyone, it's impossible. Someone inevitably will judge us in this culture of more and more judging on social media and so on. So we won't get it right for everyone, so we might as well not try, but rather go on that adventure of being our true person. And it takes courage. And it's not easy when we get judged, and we might sense it, or it might be put towards us directly. But also it's very rewarding. This one winter retreat where Thay spoke about being creative with the practice, making it our own, inhabiting the practice in a way that might look different for me than for you, and we can be a tulip and a rose and a sunflower, and they're all beautiful. It takes courage, but I find it's a lovely adventure. So my Dharma talk has the title Nowhere to Go, Nothing to Do, as the reading we heard this morning. And it's also the title of one of Thay's book. Is this a bell of mindfulness of any? Has anyone read this book, Nothing to Do, Nowhere to Go? So Thay in this book talks about the busyness-less person, which is a term by Master Linji. And I would like to invite us for a moment against the backdrop of the hooting that now has stopped. So I'd like to invite us for a moment to allow this phrase to land in our system. Nowhere to go and nothing to do. And just to sit with this for a moment and asking ourselves, how does that land in me? And there's no need to think about it. It's just a gentle, just seeing what bubbles up. For some of us, it might be one thing that is very clear. For others, it might be a mix of things. Nowhere to go, nothing to do. And I brought a little makeshift flip chart so we can collect what's in the collective field in response. Feel free to call out what came up for you. Spaciousness. Arguing.
In my mind, kind of.
I see. Internal. What is that arguing? Can you say more?
Well, it's like looking around thinking, well, there is things to do.
Yeah. Oh, you're arguing against the
Yeah.
Nothing to do. Yeah. Okay.
So initially, a sense of relief and spaciousness, but then quite soon, sort of a little like, surely there is.
Yeah. Relief was there. Yeah. Anything else?
Habit energy.
Habit energy.
Letting go.
That habit energy. Can you say more? Of what?
Of doing, busyness, of caretaking.
Busyness, caretaking, yeah.
Maybe fear of lack.
Fear of lack. Put that up here. Fear of lack. And there was also, what was there? Letting go. So that's already a nice selection. Feel free to add on. It shows how conflicted we are, I think. There's relief, spaciousness, yearning, and then there's fear of lack, seeing the things that need doing. Thank you. So I think in theory, no one of us would honestly argue the value of stopping and resting. And yet, individually and collectively, we don't seem to find it very easy. Can I ask who has felt tired recently? Hands up. Yeah, thank you. There is a word in German that translates into spring tiredness. And I don't think we have spring tiredness in English. I think it should be adopted. And I further suggest that we also should have the term autumn tiredness. I find when I observe my body-mind, heart, that in these times of seasonal transition, I easily get tired. It seems like the body and the system, overall system, takes energy to adjust to shorter days, less light, colder temperatures. That has an impact on our daily rhythms, sleep patterns perhaps. And that takes energy, and I find that the term spring tiredness beautifully captures that there's a place for this tiredness. It has a name, so therefore it's okay for it to be there. And so let's adopt autumn tiredness also, because it's normal that the body-mind needs energy to adjust. And what would it be like to embrace our energy levels as they are, instead of pushing through tiredness? I enjoy going to 5 rhythms dancing at Findhorn, and over the years and decades I have learned so much, especially about my body-mind connection. And our lovely teacher at Findhorn will say something like, if you're tired, come out anyway, come out to dance, and don't sit on the side, just dance your tiredness. And that's such a beautiful invitation, I find, to dance my tiredness, to be invited to make it really small, make movements small, make them right, and just dance with my tiredness. And I have tried to adopt this also in daily life, rather than noticing this habit energy of pushing through tiredness, which then results in disrupted sleep and other things. I have experimented and played with doing things in a tired sort of way. So what would it be like to... Yeah, I think it works pretty well with household things, to do the dishes or some hoovering or sweeping in a tired sort of way. And my experience with this is wonderful. I do recommend it, because it's an embracing and acknowledging. Still, things get done. Maybe they take a little longer, but I am not more tired afterwards. I try to be a good friend to myself, which is for me one definition of mindfulness practice, to become and be a really good friend to ourselves. And so I play with and allow myself to do things in a tired sort of way. It's harder with computer-related things, with screen work, but also that can be done in a tired sort of way. I remember once Thay was asked a question in an interview, and the question was, if we could do one thing at this time of ecological crisis, one practice that would help the earth and us, what would that practice be? What do you recommend? And Thay's answer was to practice deep relaxation on a regular basis. And that made quite an impression on me. It makes perfect sense. If we relax and are in tune with our own body, mind, heart, then chances are we will also be in tune with the earth and what's around us and other people and other beings. Just a month ago we had this lovely retreat, Love is the Way it was called, and some of you were there. And we had, I think, a strong collective realization to start loving ourselves. Kind of quite naturally gives rise to that love to spread, that intention for others to be well and happy as well. Many years ago, I listened to a talk by the Buddhist teacher Sogyal Rinpoche, Tibetan Buddhist teacher who died a few years ago. And he said something that made such an impression on me that I remembered it over all these years. He explained that mindfulness is 50% of concentration and 50% of relaxation. And then he said, but for my Western friends, it's 80% relaxation and 20% concentration. And I think that speaks to a tendency, a cultural tendency for us to try too hard. Sometimes even in our practice, I can catch myself, even in meditation. I did some research for my master's thesis a few years ago on creativity and mindfulness, and the research on flow says flow is defined as optimum presence paired with optimum relaxation. It's the same thing. We're in flow when we're fully there, absorbed with whatever there is in the moment, very present, but at the same time very relaxed and letting things come. So I would like to propose that for the rest of today and maybe tomorrow, we could play with and experiment with what would it be like to do everything with 80% relaxation. Whether we walk through the house, or we cook in the kitchen, or we listen to a talk. In our culture, I think we have a strong view and conditioning of taking care of ourselves and taking care of others being opposites, and resting and working as opposites, a very dualistic view. Whereas Thay has told us many times that in order to take good care of others, we need to take good care of ourselves. The two inter-are. Our quality of being is the foundation for the quality of our actions. Our quality of being is the foundation for the quality of our actions. And science agrees there are lots of studies now, studies that show that work and rest are not opposites, that they complement and complete each other, and that rest improves our ability to do meaningful work, to serve, and to contribute. We cannot work well without resting well. So what gets in the way of listening to our true needs of body and mind? And what's needed to create new habits of self-love, self-care, of replenishing our energy on a regular basis, so life has ease and joy, and we have something to give? That's a question that I suggest every one of us sitting with and looking deeply, because answers might vary. I know that my own habit energies are very much rooted in my ancestry. Both my mother and my grandmother were single moms, divorced, and they had to work very hard to care for their children. In my granny's situation, that was post-war, a very hard collective situation. And so when I sat and contemplated this question, I saw them and I could feel in my system that contraction, that needing to carry on. And that hardening, that pushing on, and that mindset that life is hardship. And probably that's there's similarities in our ancestry. So that's worth sitting with. When we pause, when we rest, we can do this for all our ancestors who didn't have the chance through circumstances. So we can sit, replenish ourselves, but we also, when we get in touch with our ancestors, we can offer this kind of healing to them, can sit for them at the same time. The Buddhist teacher Tara Brach speaks about our doing trance. And this doing trance is a collective habit. I used to go to a hairdresser who would always ask me, "Are you busy?" I'm sure you've been asked that as well. And the expectation then is that I start complaining how busy life is and how busy I am, but at the same time wearing my overwork as a badge of honor. And so I've been playing with different answers to not fulfill this expectation. So I think once I said, well, my life is actually pretty balanced at the moment. I couldn't see her look, but I'm sure she was surprised. It's not the answer that is expected, and yeah, it felt good to offer a different value. That balance is a value, not just overwork. And I have some quotes here from Thay. They are from Love Letter to the Earth. Doing nothing is doing something. And don't just do something, sit there. And I think it's poignant that these are from Love Letters to the Earth to show us the connection between things as they are and our doing trance. And I have reflected on this a lot because it's been a long-term practice for me to finding and refinding sense of balance in my own life. And one thing I have started to see quite clearly in this doing trance is a need to control that comes out of essential vulnerability. So see whether that resonates with you at all. When we sit in meditation and we contemplate, and we also contemplate what's going on in the world, we can touch helplessness and vulnerability, and our system is wired in a way that when we get a stress response, we want to either fight or flight or freeze. That is habit energy that goes very deep, that goes through hundreds of thousands of years of conditioning. And also many of us carry trauma, large trauma or small trauma. We have learned a lot in recent years through the wonderful work of Gabor Mate and others. And we can feel threatened. And then doing can give us an illusion of control. So how can we practice with this essential vulnerability and this strong habit energy that is not ours alone, that goes through such long ancestry? I'd like to speak a little bit about aimlessness, which is one of the 3 doors of liberation. So aimlessness is a door of liberation. It liberates us. And Thay has used the phrase resting in God from the Christian tradition, but for those of us who have this double belonging, resting in God as aimlessness. I call it for myself being held by the universe, acknowledging there's something bigger beyond our doings. So the antidote for, I was going to say antidote for vulnerability, but actually it doesn't have to be an antidote, because noticing and being with and embracing our vulnerability is the first step, allowing it to be there. But then trust and connectedness with the larger cosmos helped me a lot, and a deep knowing that I'm held by the universe, by the web of life, and that we can't fall out of it. That's what interbeing is. We can't fall out of this web of life. We are part of it. We are held by it. And that brings us to talk about the ultimate dimension. Thay has talked about the historical and the ultimate dimension. And in the historical dimension, we look through our concepts, through our rational mind, through our ideas, through how we are conditioned to make sense of the world. And there's then the underlying belief in our separateness. We are separate from each other, we are separate from other beings and from the earth. I am always so touched by the phrases from the Touching the Earth that we will do this afternoon. One of them is, we all exist together as a wonderful stream of life, which is always moving and has no beginning and no end. I am one with the wonderful pattern of life that radiates out in all directions. We all exist together as a wonderful stream of life, which is always moving and has no beginning and no end. What would it be like to allow ourselves to feel in our hearts and bones that we are not separate, that we are held by the web of life? And why does this matter? Because feeling separate makes us feel depressed and lost. Because touching our interbeing nature is a huge resource, a source of energy, and in it I find I can for moments touch non-fear and be more easily with my human condition, which among many other wonderful things also includes essential vulnerability. And the ultimate and historical dimension are not separate. They inter-are when we are deeply present in this moment with the food in our bowl, with the person in front of us, then we can at the same time touch the ultimate dimension, the sense of being not separate. So how do we practice with this in everyday life? I just want to close by giving a short example from my own life, and that was as long ago as 20 years now, when I went through a bereavement. Back then I had lost my ex-partner and close friend through suicide, and that was very traumatic. But I also had already practiced for 10 years, and I remember this moment when I received the news. A friend came to me, and a voice in my head said, "Breathe." And that's what I did. And I thought I had heard Thay say so many times, with difficult feelings, to embrace them, cradle them like a mother cradles her baby. And so I thought, well, I'm going to do this now. And I did this for, in hindsight, probably the best part of 4 years. And it was indeed transformational. And when I look over my journals from that time, and also the poems I wrote at that time, what touches me is how I, through all this, what grieving means, how I, through it all, was had a really felt sense of being held and seen through by something bigger. So I'd like to share this poem that came out of my walking meditation. I was in a house, a terraced house, then with a very small garden, back garden. And so I would just go in rounds, walking in rounds in my garden. Walking through a land of sadness, step by step, smiling to you, grief, my tree of tears. Round and round I walk, my feet trusting the path, breathing through a cloud of sadness, breath by breath, cradling you, grief, my depth of despair. In and out I breathe, healing the heart. Late evening bird, singing the song of life, I listen deeply. Late evening bird, singing the song of life, I listen deeply. Maybe we can have a bell. So this is to share with you how rooting myself time and again in the ultimate dimension helps me in my practice. And I have memories from my childhood where I already knew as a child that there was the ultimate dimension. I wouldn't have had words for it, but I have a memory of probably age 10 when my granddad had died and I was in a car with my mother traveling to the funeral. I still remember this moment where I was just looking out of the car windows and there were the flashing lights from the city and I was feeling alive and held by life. And I have one or two more memories like that from childhood. So perhaps we all on the level of store consciousness know this. And perhaps meditation where we let go of a mind consciousness to a degree, maybe we can touch this deeper knowing, allow it to come up and carry us when we need it. And I'd like to finish with a couple of quotes. And one is from Thay, from Zen and the Art of Saving the Planet. So this is going back now to our initial question about doing and non-doing. The quality of action depends on the quality of being. In Zen, we speak of the action of non-action. There are those who don't seem to be doing very much, but their presence is very crucial for the well-being of the world. And there are others who keep trying to do things, but the more we do, the more trouble society becomes because the foundation of our being is not good enough. Sometimes you don't do anything, but you do a lot. And sometimes you do a lot, but you don't do anything. It doesn't help. There are even those who meditate a lot, but their anger and jealousy just remain the same. In the historical dimension, yes, there are things we need to do, actions we need to take to save, to nurture, to heal, to reconcile. But in the ultimate dimension, you can do everything relaxingly and joyfully, with no worries at all. You are very active, but you're so relaxed you seem to be doing nothing at all. You enjoy every moment because you're acting from a base of non-action, without striving or rushing. In this way of acting, our actions become a true expression of our love, care, and awakening. It's not that we have to take action. If we're awakened, action will naturally take us. It's not that we have to take action. If we're awakened, action will naturally take us. We can't avoid it. And I'd like to, on a similar note, give the final word to Pooh Bear. I love Pooh Bear, and this is a little quote I have had on my wall above my desk for a long time, 15 years. So, quote from Pooh Bear. "Just how do you do it, Pooh?" "Do what?" asked Pooh. "Become so effortless." "I don't do much of anything," he said. "But all those things of yours get done." "They just sort of happen," he said. So I thought perhaps we could finish with singing I Have Arrived, I Am Home, because that summarizes very beautifully some of the things I was talking about. Shall we do that? I have arrived, I am home.